Welcome to the Brighter Financial Blueprint podcast, where we will explore retirement and legacy strategies for affluent families and business owners seeking clarity, confidence, and intentional wealth design. I'm Megan Clark, RICP CEO, Clark Financial Solutions advisory firm, helping families create sustainable retirement strategies. Welcome back to the Brighter Financial Blueprint podcast. Today, we'll be talking about Roth conversion windows when those actually make sense. Not all Roth conversions are good planning. Timing determines value. Let me say that again. Timing determines value. When we evaluate Roth conversions, we look at 4 different variables. 1, current marginal bracket. 2, future projected brackets. 3, what are your estate objectives? And 4, liquidity available to pay the taxes. So let's unpack those a little bit. Number 1, current marginal bracket. Obviously identifying for our clients what bracket they're in, and does it make sense to do a conversion during this year, because do we have any room left in the bracket? Or are we going to create more income than the bracket allows for, and therefore we'll be paying additional taxes in the higher bracket? So that's one thing to look at. In addition, we project out for our clients the future brackets. So based on current legislation, looking at what brackets they will be in their retirement years. And then one scenario that some of our families would like to see is what happens if brackets change. We just experienced this back in 2024 or 5, we had tax legislation that was passed where brackets changed again. So what does that look like? And what could possibly occur if brackets change? So those future projected brackets are very helpful in understanding the Roth conversion strategies as well, and whether they or not they make sense. And then in addition, we talked about estate objectives and we talked about liquidity available to pay, right? So let's talk about estate objectives. One of the things that happened with Secure Act and Secure Act 2.0 legislation that was passed in previous years was the idea that no longer could you leave an IRA to your beneficiary and it be what's called a stretch IRA. Now what happens is if you leave money that's inside a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k to your beneficiaries, then they have to withdraw that account by the end of the 10th year. What that entails is that the account balance needs to be 0 by the end of the 10th year. A lot of times when our clients are passing away, they're leaving money to their kids who are in their highest earning years of their entire career, right? Think about it. Most parents pass away in their 80s or 90s, and their kids are already in their 40s, 50s, or 60s in their highest earning years. And so now they're inheriting a bucket of money that they have to withdraw within 10 years by the end of the 10th year. And that money is all taxable to them at their tax bracket rate. So estate objectives, what's important to your family? What's important as a legacy for you? Do Roth conversions make sense from an estate objective standpoint? And then the 4th variable is the idea of making sure that this Roth conversion creates these taxes and making sure that we have money set aside to be able to pay those taxes. It's the best practice to pay the taxes from outside of the Roth conversion, meaning that we pick money up from our IRA and we move it over to the Roth. And let's say we move $1 million, for instance, all in 1 year. I'm not recommending that, just for example. We move $1 million from your IRA and we put it over into your Roth. Well, you need to have the equivalent taxes in a bank account to be able to pay that tax bill come tax filing time. Do we have that? That's the best strategy. You can withhold taxes, meaning that $1 million in your IRA turns into, let's call it $750,000 in your Roth, because the money that was in your IRA got sent to Uncle Sam to pay the tax bill. You can do that. However, the best practice and the numbers show that the Roth conversions are that much more effective when we use outside dollars to pay the tax bill. Let's talk a little bit more about the window and the timing of Roth conversions and when that can make the most sense in your strategy. When we look at the blueprint and we're designing this out with our clients, we're looking at not only the tax brackets, but also the projected brackets. So not just current brackets, but also projected. And what we talk about is, can we maximize the top of the bracket? So we literally, in our planning software, we have a toggle where we can say, hey, we want to maximize the bracket for this client. Some of our clients do Roth conversions prior to 59 and a half. Some of our 20-year-olds, our kids and our grandkids that have been referred to us from our client families that we work with, some of them change jobs, right? They leave a job, they roll their 401k over to us, and while they contributed to the Roth portion of their 401k, because that was the advice that we gave them, the employer-sponsored match goes into the traditional side. So now they're 20-some years old and they're left with traditional IRA money. And so for some of our younger clients, we'll say, hey, you have $5,000 in this traditional IRA. Let's go ahead and take advantage of converting it now. Why? Time is on their side for tax-free growth, right? And so the timing windows depends on every single individual scenario and every single client family, and there's not necessarily black and white, right or wrong. And so I just gave you an example of a younger client that, could take advantage of the Roth conversion. But let's talk about the general retirement planning client that we're working with. Now, most of these clients are a little higher net worth. They've saved several $1,000,000 in their accounts. And we're looking at retiring prior to 67. We're looking at retiring at 60 or 62. Some of these clients have pensions, some don't. But what we look at is in those variables and looking at what makes sense within the window for them is, can we take advantage of some lower income years? Maybe they stop working at 60 and we're in the plan, we're delaying claiming Social Security until age 70. So now we have 10 years to take advantage of lower income years where we can do conversions and make sure that we're locking in a lower tax rate. So the window really matters, and it depends on each individual situation as to where the income's coming from, as to how it all makes sense. In addition, we can talk to our clients about assets that have maybe become depreciated in value, or perhaps the market goes down. We have some clients that do self-directed IRA real estate investments, and we convert the self-directed IRA real estate from IRA to Roth, making sure, of course, that they have money, liquid money available to pay the taxes. But every client situation is vastly different, and so it's imperative that you're working with a planning firm that's looking at creating your entire blueprint so that you have good rules of engagement to move forward with. So in addition to the timing window, let's also talk about these ideas of downturn opportunities. So the market has a 20% drop in one upcoming year, and you're panicking, my values are down, whatnot. But what if, instead of panicking, we could think about, hey, now I'm just locked in a 20% reduced tax bill. So I pick up that money from that IRA while the market is down, and I take those stocks and I move those stocks, those Apple stocks or whatever you have in your account, and Google, IBM, Nvidia, Tesla, whatever you have in there, you pick up the stocks and you move them over to your Roth. Now you've locked in a tax loss. We've increased what we call tax alpha. And it's so important to think about your retirement plan in these words, because when the market rebounds, right, and those stocks come back in value, now you have much more money in a tax-free account for you to use for your retirement income planning needs. And so Roth conversions can be strategic when taking advantage of market downturns. In addition, there are actually investments that exist out there. A lot of them are real estate type deals, but there are investments that exist out there where you put the money into the investment from your IRA, and let's say it's a real estate development, all right, fund, and they're going out and they're buying raw land. Well, you put your money into the investment, they buy raw land, and then they get the raw land valued before they build on it. And the valuation comes a lot lower than the dollars that you put into it. And so then when that valuation comes, we can do the Roth conversion. The real estate developer develops the land and builds buildings on it, and then eventually they'll sell that. Well, what happens now? We've now effectively locked in a tax loss. And so it's really important to think about the window of your Roth conversions and when it makes sense for your scenario. If you're 65 in your top earning years and you're planning on retiring at 67, well, maybe that's not the time to be doing a Roth conversion, right? There are times when Roth conversions do not make sense. And so it's really important, that window, for us to look at and to keep an eye on. And life changes, right? The window may change. And so maybe someone becomes unemployed for 6 months. Maybe, gosh forbid, someone becomes ill. We just had this happen with a client. They became ill. They went on disability. Their disability was going to be temporary, but probably for about a year or two. And that disability wasn't taxable, that disability income, because the way it was funded through the employer benefits. And so we were able to take advantage of, hey, you're having a really bad health situation. There's a lot of bad things going on right now, but we can actually take advantage of this time from a tax return perspective and get some Roth conversions done in your 60s while you're in your highest earning years because of this, life situation that you're in. So really great opportunities exist all around us. It's just a matter of understanding how to identify them. And we'll talk about identifying opportunities, not just in the idea of Roth conversion windows, but also in the idea of estate objectives. So what we talked about earlier is the fact that you as a couple or an individual have saved a lot of money into a traditional IRA. And upon leaving that to the next generation, that money then becomes taxable to them. For some people, that is important for them to mitigate that risk. And for other people, it's not important. And again, you guys, this world, there's no right or wrong, black or white. It's just what's right for you. And so at the end of the day, when we look at Roth conversions, there can be lots of good scenarios for them, and there can be bad ones. We're working with a family now going on over a decade, and they don't have any children. They have nieces and nephews, and they have substantial money saved in traditional IRAs, and Roth conversions just don't make sense for them. It's not part of their estate objective. They've done a great job saving their money. The money is, they've been good stewards of it. They're, able to use it for their lifestyle, and whatever is left gets left, and it's all good, right? So again, this isn't right or wrong. It's just what's right for you. And so Roth conversions are strategic tools. They're not trends. And I want everyone listening today to take that away, because trends come and go. Roth conversions are most likely here to stay, and it's just a matter of how you utilize those opportunities and how you utilize that planning tool. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Brighter Financial Blueprint podcast, where we will cover coordinating retirement income with trust planning.